Hey guys, Braden Marr here. The weekends are holding you back from losing body fat and keeping it off eternally. And in this video, I'm going to reveal how the weekends are sabotaging your fat loss efforts and what you can do to prevent this from ever happening. That way you can lose body fat, keep it off eternally, not feel so restrictive with your dietary patterns, and also be able to enjoy your social life on the weekends, at social events, vacations, you name it. So if you are a man or woman of faith who aspires to lose body fat, keep it off eternally, not have to sacrifice their social life, and not be so restrictive with their nutrition, you're going to want to stick around until the end. Now, here are some examples of some sabotaging behaviors that you may be partaking in on the weekends or at any sort of social event. Number one is mindless snacking. So, if you've ever been to, let's just say, a birthday party, and on the island in the kitchen, they've got all kinds of goodies laid out. They've got crackers, they've got cheese, pretzels, they've got very high calorie dense like finger foods such as pizza rolls. I'm just throwing out examples here, even like little desserts. And let's just say 30 minutes goes by before you even know it, you've consumed 3,000 calories just from mindlessly snacking and grazing. That leads me to my next point, is just grazing. Instead of making a plate and moving on with your life, you catch yourself just indulging, and you might not even be thinking about it per se. Then you got on the other end some people who that's all that they think about when they are at these events is the food. And that's very unfortunate. I've actually been in that boat, unfortunately. Fast food and DoorDash. This is very common even during the week. I would say it's more prevalent during the weekend. You tend to see more fast food orders and more DoorDash requests on the weekends in particular. And I think that's due to just our culture. Right now, I'm making this video in the fall. You can imagine how many pizzas are being delivered, how many orders of wings, and really whatever else that you could think of, any sort of fast food that's being delivered to the house because of the event. Let's just say it's a football game per se. Alcohol, I'm not opposed to having a drink here and there, but there's no health benefit whatsoever to drinking alcohol. And what tends to happen is people end up drinking alcohol, and what do you know? They're over consuming calories, let's just say by a few hundred or even a few thousand, because some people who drink alcohol tend to make poor decisions, and let's just keep it nutrition related. They tend to consume fast food or something afterwards, which is even more of an influx of calories. And then lastly, you've got this cheat day mindset. Hey, it's Saturday, it's Sunday. I've been really good all week, so I deserve to have a cheat day. It won't hurt anything. And maybe somebody has told you that before. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you have an influx of calories, whether it be from a cheat day, whether it be from alcohol, fast food, or just being mindless overall and grazing at some of these events with the weekends, you're going to over consume calories, and it's going to ruin all of the work that you put in to lose body fat. Now, here are some of the consequences for these sabotaging behaviors. The first one that I've already mentioned is an influx of calories, which offsets your deficit or even puts you in a surplus for the week. So too many people look at the day and say, okay, I'm in a calorie deficit for the day, and they forget about the entire week, because that's ultimately what matters. Is we have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Now, if you're in a 500 calorie deficit every single day for 7 days, that's 3,500 calories. Great. That's a pound of body fat a week. Awesome. But if you have, let's just say 2 days where you have an influx of 2,000 calories on both days, 4,000 calories, you're actually in a surplus now. You're in a 500 calorie surplus because of 2 days. And it's not just the day. It's, for some people, it's a certain moment. Like I mentioned before, if you're grazing and if you're at an event and you just overindulge and you're not even thinking about it, like that might be that moment for you. So think about those moments in the social events in particular that could be throwing you off. Next thing is your digestion is thrown off. Now, if you're eating primarily wholesome, nutrient-dense foods, high in protein, and you're being mindful of the calorie intake, and you have 1 or 2 days where it's an influx of not just calories, but ultra processed foods, you're probably going to feel pretty terrible the next few days, and your digestion is going to be very poor. You're likely going to be very gassy, you're going to be very bloated, and you're just not going to feel good. Next thing is guilt. Now, too many people indulge into these sabotaging behaviors, and it's almost like a form of self-punishment. And I say that lightly and lovingly because I've been in that position to where I was really good Monday through Friday, and then I'm drowning in this guilt, and I have this like all or nothing mentality to where, okay, I had one bite of that chicken wing. I might as well just start over Monday and indulge and have some cookies and ice cream after, not even worry about it. I'll start over Monday. It'll all be good. But really what that led to is just being feeling so guilty, like, wow, I really messed up. I really messed up. You got to think about what's going on in the inner dialogue. And that's something that's very overlooked, is the conversations that you're having with yourself in these moments. And then lastly, obviously, you're going to feel very discouraged. You're going to be very hopeless, and you're likely not going to have that desire to want to change, because this keeps happening. It keeps happening over and over again. And what I wanted to shed light to is that it's not just a matter of you not being in a calorie deficit and you not losing body fat. It's what it does to you mentally. Now that we've become aware of our sabotaging behaviors and the consequences associated with them, let's talk about the solutions. And the first thing we need to do is shift our mindset around these experiences. Remember that the experience, it's about the experience. It's not about the food. The food is just a byproduct of it. It's a very minor portion of the experience itself. Think about this. If it's a birthday party, going back to the birthday party example, you can eat before you come. I'm not saying that you can't eat at the birthday party, but if you ate before you came, would you still enjoy yourself if you didn't have the cake and ice cream? Ask yourself that question. It's very important to become aware of our inner dialogue in these conversations, because oftentimes we latch on to the food as part of the experience. And really, we need to shift that back to the moments that we're having, the connections that we're making, and the activities, rather than focusing solely on the food itself. Again, not saying that you can't have food at any sort of event on the weekend, but we have to have that boundary in place to remember that we are there for the experience. We also need to be mindful with eating and just simply practicing being for mindful. And again, in setting boundaries with what goes into our mouth per se. And what I mean by setting boundaries and limits is have a plan. If you're going to indulge a little bit at whatever event that you're going to, make sure that you plan for it. Maybe you've heard me use the budgeting analogy, and I think this one is very useful on the weekends per se. So if you're really good with budgeting, you know that in order to stay on track with your budget and with your financial goals, that if you want to splurge, say you want to go get that Gucci purse for your wife, or you want to ball out and get a Lambo or something like that, you have to plan for it. Obviously, you have to budget for it. That's the same instance for a weekend event. So say that you guys are going to go watch a football game at the bar and you want to have a burger and fries every now and then. Probably not going to kill you, but plan for it. Make sure that it fits your calories and macros. Now, that's an example of a limit or a boundary per se. Another example of a boundary or limit is saying that, okay, I'm going to go to little Jimmy's birthday party, and instead of grazing and being mindless, I'm going to be mindful of what's going in my mouth first and foremost. Make sure that I'm not over consuming calories. I'm going to make one plate of food and I'm going to move on from the experience. And if that table of food is distracting me, I'm going to indulge into another conversation and not the food itself. And this practice of mindfulness, it helps you fall in love with the experience, and it prevents you from overindulging and just simply being mindless. We also need to be aware of what triggers us. For some people, it's the island of food. For some people, it's associating a beverage or a food with an event, such as golf. Maybe you associate drinking beer with a round of golf with your buddies, and that's a trigger for you. And this ties back to setting the boundaries. Now, first thing is first is identify that trigger. Now, we either have to remove the temptation or we have to put a hard boundary in place. And it just depends on where you're at with this. For me, for example, I personally don't bring junk food into my house because I would rather not flirt with that temptation and just get rid of it. I don't tell myself that I can't have it. If I want to have it, I go out and get it within reason, but I don't bring it in and set myself up for failure. Now, that's different when I go to a social event per se, or if it's an environment with that trigger in it. I then set a hard boundary. And again, this goes back to the inner dialogue. The more aware we are of the environments and the triggers that lie within them, the more likely we're going to be able to have a plan and set those hard boundaries in place to best deal with those triggers and make a good decision. Now, it's important that we remember the goals that we have at hand. Remember it from a macro level all the way down to a micro level. What's the goal for the week? What's the goal for the day? What's the goal for the month? What's the goal for the year? Keep those things in mind. Look at the big vision, and having these reminders in our heads while we're at these events, that makes us a lot less likely to give in to our triggers and fall to these temptations that may hinder our progress. Lastly, plan ahead. I've already touched on this a little bit with the budgeting analogy, but something else that you can do if you do plan on indulging a little bit is consuming a lot of protein and fiber throughout the day, keeping the protein high, keeping the food volume high, but also keeping the calories low. And you can also obviously hydrate yourself throughout the day. That way you're less likely to overindulge when that event comes. And again, if you're going to budget for a certain meal, you might not even finish it because you're already full leading to that event. But regardless, we don't want to show up to these events ravenously hungry. I think the worst thing you can do is budget too hard to where you have like a 500 calorie, let's just say your intake is 2,500 calories. You only eat 500 calories, so you can say, I got 2,000 calories to work with. You're not going to be able to stop yourself. So it is important that you plan this strategically and that you don't set yourself up for failure, because eventually survival mechanisms will kick in and you just won't be able to stop yourself. Hope you guys found some value in this video on how to handle the weekends and social events in particular. So what I'm going to do is, in the next video that I post, it's going to be a vlog of how I personally handle myself on the weekends. We're going to be traveling this weekend. We're going to head down to the Georgetown area, which is north of Austin. I'm in the Dallas area. We're going to travel down there to spread my grandmother-in-law's ashes at her church. And while we're there, we'll be staying in an Airbnb out in the woods just to have some time away, to kind of making it knocking out two birds with one stone, just having some time to ourselves, my wife and I, and my mother-in-law as well, spending some time together. We will be eating out, and there will also be certain instances where I have to pivot and make a different decision per se. But regardless, I am going to plan ahead. I'm going to prepare. I'm going to have all my meals planned out, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how easy it is and how you can approach any sort of event on the weekend, whether it be a getaway, whether it be a birthday party, a wedding, whatever it is. I'm going to show you exactly how I would do it and how you can do it as well. If you are a man or woman of faith who aspires to lose body fat, keep it off eternally, not have to give up your social life, not hop on some sort of weird diet trend, and you would like some one-on-one support, feel free to book a call in with me. What we'll do is we'll discuss where you're at currently, where you're trying to go, and how we can get you from A to B. Thanks again for watching this video. Stay healthy and God bless.